All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Rob Savage, and I'm here with another episode of 600 Seconds with High-Low Art. And today's guest we have...
DaWayne Nettles.
Y'all give it up for DaWayne Nettles. So what's up, man?
What's going on, man? Good to be back.
Oh, yeah, good to have you back, man. Tell the people about yourself, man.
All right, I'm DaWayne Nettles, a.k.a. Mr. Nettles. I'm a stand-up comedian, originally from Darlington, South Carolina, based out of Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. How did you get started?
I actually got started. A lot of my friends and coworkers encouraged me. They always said I was funny around the office, so they kept encouraging me to pursue stand-up, like outside of being a hobby. So I saw a class being offered. So I took the comedy class. Okay. Did really well in the class, and once I took the class, I kind of felt like, okay, I might be able to pursue this outside of just fun. So I really hit the ground running since then.
Word. You say you from Darlington?
Originally, yep, Darlington, South Carolina.
Well, how important is representing South Carolina in your work to you?
It really, you see a lot of it in my stand-up. Being a young black kid born and raised in South Carolina, a lot of my comedy focuses around social commentary. So there's a lot of race relations in my comedy. So I think South Carolina is pretty paramount to me. So it kind of is my mainstay. The things I talk about, it kind of makes who I am.
Okay. Do you feel like there's something missing from the South Carolina entertainment scene? If so, then what do you think?
Really, I would say the biggest thing, most people, in terms of entertainment in South Carolina, I see a lot of people feel the need to go out. So either go to Atlanta, move to New York, go to LA, finding different outlets. So I think the biggest thing for South Carolina, because I noticed, especially when I got started, when I first got into the comedy scene, I noticed there was a lot of competition. Like there were a lot of good talent. So like, oh, people they're good. Yeah. So it was surprising. So the talents here, I think the biggest thing for South Carolina is creating that platform.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself woke?
I definitely do. I guess it's kind of, being an educator, it's almost impossible not to be woke and black. I tell people all the time, my biggest enemy is ignorance. So I actually got a joke about being woke. I consider myself good 8 hours of sleep woke. So when I'm awake, I'm very awake. But I do love my rest because sleep deprivation will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. What do you feel like is your purpose in life?
Honestly, I feel like my purpose, one thing we talk about a lot, me and some of my friends, we talk about legacy a lot. So for me, I feel like my purpose is to give back and to leave something here once I'm gone. So I think being an educator, that's one thing I always want to do. Through the things I teach, through the memories and the different things, I want to leave something for the generation behind me.
Okay. Who are some of your biggest influences, inspirations?
Biggest influences and inspirations in life, I would just say my parents, my mother, my father. From an entertainment standpoint, definitely Dave Chappelle, Deion Cole, D.L. Hughley. I consider my comedy just a lot of social commentary, and I tend to like dry humor. So I take a lot of my influences from them, but also a lot of new and up and coming guys like Kevin on Stage, guys like that. So I'm really inspired by those guys.
Okay, I like that you mentioned Dave Chappelle. He's one of my favorite comedians of all time.
All right.
Who is somebody who you would like to work with?
Those names included, but that's some newer guys. Ali Sadiq. I really love the things that Kev is doing with his comedy and just media in general. I would love to work with Deion Cole. So really, it's a lot of guys I like to work with.
And you spoke on being an educator earlier. Right. What made you want to, jump into that?
Well, I come from a family educator, so my mother and father both retired teachers. So I remember seeing people come up to them, like just being out in the store and just seeing adults being excited to see my parents, and just like almost seeing them turn back into third graders for a minute, and just seeing the impact they had on people. That's something I knew early on I wanted to be able to do once I became an adult. Once I started teaching, I would say, just being able to see a kid get it, and you see somebody not knowing something, and after you spend some time with them, they learning like that. It's just been a rewarding experience for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel like is your best project or your best work so far that you've done?
Best work so far. Actually, I just was named top 20 under 40 by SE Backpages last week. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
As far as recognition so far. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest so far.
Okay. That's great, man. You have any upcoming work?
Any upcoming projects? Really, me and my comedy collective, Certified Comics, myself, Michael Garrett, Travis T. Link, and Nestor Vasquez. We've been putting on shows across the state of South Carolina. We just had our last show, our first real show, this past Sunday at the Joint. So please look out. Be looking forward to up and coming shows we'll be planning pretty soon.
Okay. If you weren't doing comedy and education, what would you be doing?
Really, I don't know. I guess my interests are so like widespread. So I've done a little bit of everything. I think I'll be an educator forever. I don't necessarily see myself being a comedian. I never really saw that in the cards for me. Yeah. But just as far as interest, I feel like I'll always be doing something with students or with kids, just teaching in some capacity. I've always been a big hip hop fan. So I feel like I'll be doing something either entertainment or education related with it, if it wasn't teaching full time or doing comedy.
Yeah. Okay. What will be a personal I made it moment where you feel like you made it?
Oh man, personal I made it moment. I don't know. I guess for me, like I guess I was just so used to being so humble. I don't know if I would ever see myself in this position doing what I'm doing. I've always considered myself a behind the scenes type of guy. I used to go into my classroom, teach my kids, and I used to go home. That was the gist of it. So I really guess saying like being recognized for the work I've been doing on the education platform and from entertainment platform. To me, I've done more than I thought I was gonna do already. So and as long as I'm able to give back, make a difference in my students' lives, and that's good enough for me.
Okay. Well, being an educator,
right.
Do you have any advice for anybody watching who may want to be an educator or be a comedian or entertainer or anything?
Right. The biggest thing I can say, what I learned from myself, with this education, with this comedy, entertainment, my biggest role at the University of South Carolina is I advise students about going to college and career choice. So the biggest thing I start with is what do you want to do? Asking them what they want to do, figuring out what that is, and just tell them to just try it. Go for what you like, try it, give it a shot. Like you never know. Like I said for myself, I never saw myself being a stand-up comedian, actually pursuing it outside of a hobby. So it just kind of took off. It was something I was good at, and it's working out.
Okay, word. How has the big bad COVID-19 pandemic affected your career?
COVID-19, it's like a double-edged sword almost. It's almost like, in one way, it's probably the worst thing that's happened, and then on the second hand, it's almost one of the best things that's happened for me. I started comedy February 2020, and then COVID hit like right after that. So right. I literally got out of the gates, was doing well, and then COVID hits, and we were stuck home. But I would say for me, COVID-19, it really offered a platform for us to get creative. Yeah. So I launched a podcast. Started networking more, reaching out to people, and really just fine-tuning my craft in terms of writing and just getting my material really strong. And then once things kind of started opening back up slightly, that's when I kind of started networking and getting back on the scene. And just a few places that were open, and it was social distance, so only a few people could come in. It was a good opportunity for us to just go out and try to work new material. So I would really say, really, it kind of helped because I got more platforms, more stage time, and just working new stuff that I probably wouldn't have got otherwise.
Yeah, and that's what I'm starting to hear from a lot of artists, saying that COVID-19 gave them opportunity to, isolate and rebuild and work on their brand and different things like that. Being from Darlington, have you ever been to a race? Have you ever been in a race car?
I've never been in a race car, but I have been to the race. I've been to a race NASCAR race before. I grew up literally. I could walk to the racetrack from the house I grew up in. It's actually race weekend this weekend, but I've been to a few races. It's interesting. I would say, growing up in Darlington, you don't really like race culture. Is a part of Darlington. It's kind of inbred into it. But I think in terms of the racial overtones you see in race culture with Confederate flags and people coming in, things of that nature. So when you're a kid, you don't really recognize it. You just see it's a part. It's almost ingrained in you. Yeah. So you see a Confederate flag, it's like, okay, that's a rebel flag. Like what is that? Like what is that? But really, I think it's kind of played into my comedy. The older I got and the more woke I become, I realized what that represents. you kind of see the many layers of growing up, like literally down the street from there. I saw a truck setting up 2 days ago when I was in Darlington, and then they don't have the rebel flag anymore, they banned it, but now you see subliminal stuff. You see, don't tread on me,
right?
Blue Lives Matter.
Blue Lives Matter, yeah.
So it's the same flag, different colors as far as I'm concerned. But it's definitely ingrained in who I am as a person. I think it's helped as far as the way I kind of view race and things and that nature, and just the cultural pieces of it. So it's definitely something to think about when growing up in Darlington.
Okay. How important is family to you?
Family is key. I come from a big family. We were really close growing up. So I think that family dynamic has always been a big part of who I was coming up as a person. And I've kind of taken that with me, even outside of my family. Going into work and working with my students, one of the big things we push is how do you create a family environment everywhere you go. Right. So going into my classroom, creating that safe space, creating a family environment, I started to see me being more progressive and more impactful in my work, just bringing that family dynamic everywhere I went.
Absolutely. So when you finally reach that I made it moment or whatever, what's the place, and you finally get a vacation, what's the place where you would like to visit?
Really, there's a few places I like to visit. I kind of want to get abroad. I want to go to Japan. I'm really big in the different like cultures. I'm really interested in really for the fashion aspect of it. Like the Japanese culture is really interesting to me. I want to get to Africa at some point. I want to get out there. I want to go to Canada. There's so many places I just like to get out and go to. So I definitely do that. I know here, I definitely want to get back out to California. And I definitely say that my job too has afforded me opportunity to kind of travel a lot. So I've been able to move around a little bit and see different things. But there are a few places I still want to get out to.
Okay, word. All right. You got to give me your top 3 favorite comedians.
All right, top 3. That's just tough. You put me on the spot.
Yeah,
top 3. So, well, it's Dave Chappelle. That's number 1. Dave's the GOAT. I remember I'm a big fan of Eddie Murphy stand-up. That's one of the first comedy specials I remember seeing as a kid. Raw and Delirious. And I just remember like the red leather suit. It's just the iconic moment. But I just remember like being a kid and just like knowing like this stuff is like way over my head. Like, well, why is this stuff so funny? So I just knew something about that was special. And I would say 3, Chris Rock. Chris Rock is one of the guys I'm a fan of.
Solid list, man.
Yeah.
It's a good list. What I'm sorry, tell us about your podcast.
Okay, so I'm a co-host of a podcast, Laughs and Hip Hop. I co-host with 2 of my college colleagues, Jose Rivera and Maximilian Speed. So our podcast focuses on because my homeboy, he's a rapper. I'm a comedian, so we kind of took a play on the show Love and Hip Hop. We call it Laughs and Hip Hop. So I bring the comedy, he brings the lyrics, but we kind of talk about a little bit of everything. We initially started just to kind of talk about rap, talk about the comedy scene, but it quickly evolved into us just having dialogue about things that are on TV, the rap scene, the comedy scene, politics, and that was never the goal initially, but it just organically happened that way. But I would say Laughs and Hip Hop is pretty much the birth child of what I say 15 years of friendship and conversation being brought to YouTube, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. What's your favorite comedy TV show of all time?
Favorite comedy TV show? That's a tough one too. I was a big In Living Color guy growing up. Saturday Night Live is a staple. This the sitcom stuff it's so many. Martin,
knew it was coming.
Fresh Prince. Yeah. And I hate to say it, Bill Cosby, The Cosby Show.
Yeah,
hate to say it, but it's still a good show. He just drugging folks. That's all.
Okay. All right. What about movie? Favorite comedy movie?
Favorite comedy movie. That's tough too. I remember growing up. One of my favorite movies was this is like digging deep. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Was like one of the funniest movies I remember growing up. So that's like one of my favorite comedy movies.
Say again. What?
I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Oh, I'm gonna get. Oh.
You ever seen that?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember seeing it and thinking this is crazy. It was like the beginning of what became Scary Movie and all that. Yeah. That was my first time seeing something like that.
Right.
What's in your music playlist?
My music playlist, I'm a big fan of Kendrick, so Kendrick stays on rotation. Big Crit, anything Drake puts out, I go out and get. I'm a big fan. Then on the R&B side, SZA. I just got into Tank and the Bangers recently. That's pretty good. Yeah. It's a little mix. CeeLo Green. I then reaching back, of course, Outkast, Goody Mob.
All-time favorite.
Right. You gotta shout out Outkast, greatest of all time. But this is a little bit of everything, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Tell the people why they should follow and support you.
I just like to consider myself, you should follow and support me. One of the biggest thing I say is support black comedies, but just from my platform. With COVID-19, I feel like that was an opportunity for everybody. It was rough, so I feel like people are looking for a reason to laugh. So I feel like follow me, just to always try to lighten the mood everywhere I go. So give me a reason to laugh, but also give you a reason to kind of be hopeful. Any educational tidbits I put out there. So I try to keep my social media as close to real life as possible.
Okay. Well, let them know where they can follow you and support you.
All right, so you can follow me everywhere at Mr. Nettles, MisterNettles on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can follow our podcast at Laughs and Hip Hop Podcast on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. Any final shout outs for the people?
Definitely want to shout out my podcast co-hosts, Jose Rivera, Maximilian Speed. I also want to shout out my comedy collective, Certified Comics, T-Link, Michael Garrett, Nestor Vasquez.
Word. Give it up for DaWayne Nettles.
I appreciate you.
Make sure you like, share, subscribe, follow us, and everything, and be blessed.